Squatting is one of the most important primal movement patterns. Maintaining a good squat form is heavily related to better mobility. And as we know, mobility or locomotion is greatly associated to longevity. So that's why squatting or keeping a mobile and great deep squat is of heavy importance to stay moving. With our modern day sedentary lifestyles, it's quite easy to get in a seated position for like 8 to 10 hours and just forget about it. But what happens is all these structures around the hip and the lumbar spine get tight, and this can increase the arch in your lower back and increase pain and tightness in both lower and upper back. So maintaining a good squat mobility is an essential prerequisite to preventing part of this. We should train to maintain an optimal squat called ass to grass in the fitness industry, and to do so, it's essential to be squatting deeper and squatting more frequently. Squatting is not just an exercise, it is a fundamental movement pattern that humans have been doing since the dawn of time. From lifting heavy objects to sitting down on the ground, squatting is a primal movement that our bodies were designed to do. The benefits of squatting are numerous, especially when it comes to lower body strength. Deep squats engage the muscles of the legs, glutes, and core, making it a compound exercise that can help build strength and stability throughout the entire body. The benefits of hip mobility extend far beyond a better-looking squat. Hip mobility can prevent injuries in athletes. It can increase functional strength and improve athletic performance. It can reduce low back tightness and low back pain. Hip mobility also can contribute to a better sitting and standing posture. The hip is a ball and socket joint that needs sufficient range of motion and stability to properly function. Most common problems in people are tight hip flexors, tight adductors, and weak gluteus muscles. Most of the exercises we'll see today are targeting the muscles around the hips. Some of them enhance flexibility, some strength, and others increase stabilization by co-activating more muscles at once. First exercise is the 90-90 transfers. This is a very simple, warm-up friendly kind of exercise that will loosen up the hips. The main point of the 90-90 is to stretch out the lateral portion of your legs, so when you go into the squat, you can push your knees out in the direction of your toes smoothly. It stretches the glutes, internal and external hip rotators. It's great as a warm-up, pre-squatting to loosen up tight hips, and it's very light and easy, mostly I would say beginner-friendly as well. Begin in a seated position with your legs bent at 90 degrees and your feet on the floor. Place your hands on the ground for support. Shift your weight toward the front leg and hold for 2 to 3 seconds, then slowly rotate to the other side with your feet staying in contact with the ground the whole time. Transition to 90-90 and bend your torso toward the other leg now. This exercise helps improve hip internal and external rotation, which can help you achieve a deeper squat. The second exercise is ankle dorsiflexion, and this has to do with improving ankle mobility. As you know, one of the most common problems with a shallow squat is poor ankle mobility. In a way, when you try to squat deep, if your calves are too tight, they don't let the knees go as forward as they need to achieve that deep and nice squat. So improving ankle mobility is one of the key ways to go for improving your squat. Starting in a kneeling lunge position, slowly shift your weight toward the front foot. The knee is gently pushed forward until a nice stretch is felt in the calf muscles around the Achilles. You hold for 3 seconds, then slowly get back. You repeat it for 10 times, trying to go a bit further but gently each cycle. Do them dynamically, transitioning back and forth. The third one is deep squat, or just squatting more. It's quite logical that squat would be one of the most optimal exercises to improve squatting mobility when done correctly, because it actually targets the very specific muscles that work in the squat. From stretching out the tight muscles like the inner adductors to like improving co-activating different stabilizing muscles that are helping you get into a deep squat, it does it all. It teaches the body on a neural motoric level how to enter the squat properly. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart and your toes pointed slightly outward. Lower your hips down toward the ground, keeping your chest up and your heels on the ground. Once you reach the bottom of the squat, try pushing your knees out just a bit in the direction of your toes, and pause for a few seconds before standing back up. Occasionally, you can use a strap for support to allow for a decline in a lower position. This will stretch out the inner portion of our legs, the hip adductors. The fourth one is the Spider-Man lunge twists, and this is one of my favorite both hip mobility and yoga exercise I tend to include in a lot of my functional training classes. The Spider-Man lunge really opens up the whole body. It stretches the hip flexor iliopsoas on the rear leg, and it stretches out the outer portion of your front leg while adding some spinal mobility and stretching out the sort of lateral portion of your torso. It's a great, complex and functional full body mobility exercise, pretty nice for warm-ups as well. While you won't become a Spider-Man right afterwards, it can help you become a bit more mobile. Begin in a high plank position, then bring one foot up front outside your hand. Rotate your torso toward your bent knee, then reach your opposite arm towards the ceiling. Return to the starting position and repeat for 5 slow reps on each side. This exercise helps you to improve hip mobility and thoracic spine rotation, which can help you achieve a deeper squat. Then it's the hip flexor stretch, which, as you know, for sitters, this is probably one of the best things you could do. If you sit too much, your hip is in this position all the time and you're not extending enough because you're not walking or standing as much or squatting. So what happens is this iliopsoas muscle, the hip flexor, tightens and it pulls your pelvis back, and so when the pelvis rotates, your spine is actually in the lower portion of your back curved a little bit more than it should be. So this leads to tightness in the low back and also low back pain. Place the other foot flat on the floor in front of you with your knee bent at 90 degrees angle. Tilt your pelvis backward and shift your weight forward. You should feel a light stretch in your hip flexor, hold for 30 seconds, breathe deep, and then switch sides. Sixth exercise is lunge to single leg stance, and while this won't drastically improve hip mobility from a perspective of flexibility and stretch and loosening up the hips, it does improve co-activation and stabilization of certain muscles unilaterally that can help you stay in a deeper squat. This is important because a portion of hip mobility or squat mobility has to do with strength and stability, so the ability to co-activate more muscles at once and to stabilize, keep yourself in that deep squat. This is a great exercise as it builds unilateral or single side, single leg balance. Standing on your right leg, knees slightly bent, slowly step back with your left foot in a lunge position. After you do a split squat, push through the front leg to get back up to a single leg stance, lift the left knee, stabilize the hip. Hold for 2 seconds, then step back for 10 reps in total. Last but not least, it's the hip abduction with a band that primarily targets the abductors, so the muscles that push your leg outward. This is especially crucial in people who tend to sit a lot because they have weaker gluteus medius. So with weak gluteus medius, our hips are not so stable and our knees can go inward, while activating that one can help us push the knees out and squat deeper and be more stable. It's also a great preventative exercise for low back pain and improving lower body strength in those who sit a lot. In a seated position, attach a resistance band around your ankles. Feet are on the floor, your spine rests on a comfortable support. Slowly stretch out the band, pushing your knees outwards, wide apart, and hold for 3 seconds. Slowly resist to get back and repeat again for 10 reps. The key is to hold for a bit to squeeze out the abductors maximally. So that's around it for this video. If there's one thing you need to take in is that hip mobility is very important, and maintaining your ability to squat deep is essential for your locomotion, independence, lower body strength, and even optimal posture. We're going to go through the exercise once again, so just remember it. Take a note. 1990 transfers, ankle dorsiflexion, deep supported squats, Spider-Man lunge twist, hip flexor stretch, lunge to single leg stance, and hip abduction with a band. Thank you for watching. Let me know which one was your favorite. Bye.